Afternoon. Could I repeat? Ladies and gentlemen, كيف تحسن؟ Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you, distinguished guests, excellencies, vice rectors, faculty, and colleagues, to the UN PSU Diagnostics paper launch event, as it is the first result of the official cooperation between Prince Sultan University and the United Nations. And my name is Nora Crimley. I am a lecturer at the College of Law at Prince Sultan University. The first thing that occurs to me is to congratulate those who had the initiative of arranging an event such as this. Now, let's watch a video about PSU.
PSU considered to be the first and the leading nonprofit private university in the kingdom, proving the kingdom's success and value of private higher education.
Especially impressive is the commitment to providing the first-class English language education and employability skills in the international workplace.
والله أنصح جميع الطلاب اللي وصلوا للمرحلة الجامعية أنهم ما يفكروا بأي مثلا جامعة ثانية، لأنها الحمد لله يعني ما فيها نقص من ناحية التعليم، ما فيها نقص من ناحية الاستمتاع بوقتك بحياتك الجامعية بأي حاجة.
Prince Sultan University was founded in 1999 as a private college. In just over 15 years, it has established a reputation as one of the foremost universities in the kingdom. The university's rector, Dr. Ahmad Yamani, believes this extraordinary success is down to the unique way the institution is funded.
It is a non-profit institution, meaning we do not have a board member waiting at the end of each academic year for their investment return. And so there is always updating to the academic programs to cope with the changing demand of the market.
PSU was set up under the auspices of the Riyadh Philanthropic Society for Sciences.
تزدهر بأجمل القيم وأصلها وأنبل صور المحبة وأكدها سائلا المولى القدير أن يحفظكم سالما غانما وأن يرعاكم بعنايته ويسدد خطاكم.
The college was named in honor of the former Crown Prince Sultan and was given generous support from the outset by Crown Prince Salman, now the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz.
السلطان ليس غريبا على أبناء وطنك أن ينشئوا هذه الكلية باسمك، وليس غريبا عليك أن ترعاها وتدعمها بكل الوسائل. لذلك يا سيدي لك من أبناء وطنك الشكر والعرفان على ما عملت، وأملهم دائما فيك كبير كبير كما أنت كبير. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
In 2003, the private college attained formal status as a university and quickly expanded the range of courses on offer. The university has both a male and a separate female campus, with students choosing from a range of academic disciplines, including finance, law, computing, architecture, and interior design. With the exception of Arabic studies, all the courses are taught in English, and students begin their degrees with a program of intensive tuition in the language.
It makes our students more well-rounded and taught by employers, because now in today's global world, English is the lingua franca, what is used predominantly in cyberspace. So it makes our students more marketable.
The emphasis on English is part of PSU's outward-looking international approach to education. This also includes sending students on foreign learning exchanges and educational trips. Japan, Ireland, Malaysia, and the United States are among the many countries visited so far. The university's international outlook is reflected in its own student body. Over 25% come from outside the kingdom.
Look at it as a melting pot. We have faculties from all different walks of life. We have over 34 different nationalities, with also the students from different backgrounds that reflects positively in the process of learning and teaching.
As well as its range of formal degree courses, PSU also runs a series of 6-month education for employment programs affiliated with specific companies to turn out graduates with the particular skills they need.
This program take you from the zero till the top networks and security, or as they said, from zero to hero. I've got many offers from many organizations with high salary. I've never dreamed about it, even though I've not completed the program yet. So my family and my friends, they're all proud of what I did. And even me, I'm very proud of what I did and the decision that I made.
Once complete, the expansion program will provide the capacity for an additional 5,000 students. But PSU is keen to keep its size in check so that quality remains paramount.
الآن نلمس أن جامعة الأمير سلطان تقريبا هي النموذج أو الأساس، هي النموذج لجميع الجامعات الأهلية الجديدة اللي وزارة التعليم تقول دائما لجامعة الأمير سلطان شوفوا النموذج جامعة الأمير سلطان تبعوه. هذا يعطينا يضع علينا مسؤولية كبيرة أننا فعلا نستمر في هالجانب. التميز هذا هو هدف، التميز ليس بالأعداد، التميز بالنوعية، نوعية الطلاب، نوعية التخصصات. نهدف لرفع النوعية ولتعميق الأداء اللي موجود في الجامعة.
PSU has already fulfilled the vision of its founders to become the leading private non-profit university in Saudi Arabia. With the expansion of the campus and continued emphasis on quality education, the university can look forward to even greater achievements in the future.
Now, let us have the pleasure of listening to our opening remarks by our President, Dr. Ahmed Yamani. May I present his President to the stage, please? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon to you all, and thank you for physically being here at this exceptional and challenging time. For the MOU signing on research partnership between PSU and UN country team on the collaboration between UNDP and Prince Sultan University to compose a diagnostic paper guided by the UN framework on the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 on the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It is a great pleasure for all of us here at PSU, and we are indeed pleased and delighted to have with us the UNDP Resident Representative, Dr. Adam Charles Bolusa, Dr. Mohammed Lowy, Deputy Resident Representative of UNDP, and Dr. Alias Bosak, economist in UN Resident Coordinator Office, who will be representing the RCO in the speech. We welcome our guests and all the UNDP outstanding team members, and we thank you for finding time to personally join us at this important gathering. Although the combination of shocks from the COVID-19 pandemic and topsy-turvy nature of the kingdom's natural resources, Saudi Arabia demonstrated commendable efforts and contained the spread of COVID-19 via a range of timely and well-developed measures to mitigate the impact of the pandemic. A number of these measures are already in place, targeting the most vulnerable segment of society. Our government has taken steps in such a key social areas as health, education, poverty, gender equality, and social protection programs. Saudi Arabia is already in harmony with and integrating UN 2030 17 global goals into our own Vision 2030. This is testimony to our country's commitment to the SDGs related activities. Our nation is determined more than ever to accelerate the pace of social and economic transformation by building on existing achievement, policies, and institutions. The government has already invested more than 7% of SGDP to address and alleviate the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, the labor market, and the individuals as well, and the individual's well-being. On the health front, the kingdom is well prepared to tackle the pandemic, having dedicated facilities, including 80,000 beds and 8,000 ICU beds to deal with the pandemic. As of the 15th of December 2020, there were a little over 361,000 confirmed cases and a little over 6,000 deaths in Saudi Arabia. Back in late June, Saudi Arabia was ranked 13 on the Worldometer coronavirus list, topping of the little over 4,000 in new cases. Now, the daily heights are under 200. Saudi Arabia has become, over the past 5 months, one of the top 20 safest countries in the world during the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. In mid-August, Saudi Arabia merited the #1 spot in the Regional Resiliency Index by the Hong Kong Deep Knowledge Group, which considers how the country's demography, geopolitical stability, and socio-disciplines and other factors influence safety during the COVID-19 outbreak. Our priority at PSU is to use the pandemic situation as an opportunity to demonstrate Saudi agility and ability to be part of the solution. PSU marched to the forefront in supporting research effort towards the impact of COVID-19 by allocating a budget for the Best COVID General Paper Award, in addition to 4 awards for the Best COVID Project. The essence of PSU's mission as a contributor to the kingdom's vision is to unlock the talent and potential of the Saudi young men and women and improve their employability, which of course relies on strong education. For the past 20 years, PSU has built a reputation for the rigor of its academic programs and the quality of its graduates. In 1998, Prince Sultan University was announced, and in 1999 was established by the Riyadh Philanthropic Society for Science under the auspices of the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz, when he was at the time the governor of Riyadh region and chairman of the board of directors of the Riyadh Philanthropic Society, which is the legal umbrella for PSU. The university was established in dedication to the late Crown Prince Sultan bin Abdulaziz. We are proud to be directly linked to one of the milestone changes in higher education system in this country, the introduction and establishment of private higher education. Throughout these years, PSU has shown its commitment on providing quality higher education, on par with the highest international standards. Today, over 80% of PSU graduates get job offers during their co-op training program before even they graduate. Our employability rating was reaffirmed by the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Affairs in their recent visit to PSU, indicating that PSU is number one in the kingdom in placing our fresh graduates into jobs. In addition, as a social responsibility, PSU provides quality professional training for the unemployed Saudi university graduates. I am proud to say that we have many successful Saudi graduates in our community service and continuous education program who are now working in a very high position in the public and private sector. They are true testament to the quality of our training program. The positive changes that these professional training programs have brought to the lives of so many young Saudis, both men and women and their families, are a perfect example of what PSU aims to achieve through our professional training program. Also, as part of PSU's humanitarian and community service activities, the university had established a prosthetic and orthotic center. Center is to develop 3D printed prosthetic and orthotics at lower cost and less time compared to the conventional techniques. The university is also working to contribute to prosthetic centers in developing countries. PSU has visited Uganda and discussed the need and venue of support and prosthetics that are needed. This afternoon, we are witnessing the fruitful result of the dual partnership of PSU and UNDP. All of us here at PSU are proud indeed, proud to have successful teamed with the UNDP in putting together a diagnostic research paper. PSU puts great value upon its close and growing relationship with UNDP. This relationship offers potential benefits to us all. We are determined to build and strengthen the ties between us. We are all beneficiaries of this collaborative venture. We at PSU are serving the at-large communities which contributed greatly to our own existence. UNDP fulfills its mandate and its obligation to the kingdom. Closing, I would like to take this opportunity and personally wish to acknowledge and recognize PSU team and the Center for Financial Studies, led by its General Supervisor, Dr. Mohammed Al-Misr, PSU Deputy Vice President for Academic Affairs. In addition, of course, UNDP team for their significant role in this important undertaking and who worked jointly so hard with PSU team to make this day possible. Let me finish by saying that we look forward to enjoying a long-lasting, successful, and fruitful partnership with UNDP, a partnership that will endure and reward us all. And thank you all.
Thank you, our President, Dr. Yamani, for the very insightful message you imparted this afternoon. Now let's watch a video on the United Nations. The speech of Her Excellency Nathalie Postier, the UN Resident Coordinator, will be read on her behalf by Dr. Ilyas Kunikish. Dr. Ilyas, please proceed to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Her Excellency Nathalie Fustier, the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Saudi Arabia, dear ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, the COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented global health crisis with severe economic and social impacts, the worst crisis since World War II, at a time when multilateralism has been challenged by more national-centered approaches. Since March, the COVID-19 pandemic has taken a heavy toll on our lives and continues to wreak havoc around the world. Over 1.5 million people have died, and over 65 million have been reported infected. The real numbers are likely higher and will continue to increase. The economic and social consequences are also dire. Negative growth is expected in 172 countries in 2020. Extreme poverty is set to increase by 88 million to a total of 115 million people. Equivalent job losses are expected to hover around 435 million people. The global growth contraction is compounded by a drop of 40% in foreign direct investment and up to 20% in trade. In addition to the tragic health toll of more than 350,000 people infected and almost 6,000 people losing their lives in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the consequences are dire across segments of the society and the economy. The COVID-19 pandemic coincided with a significant drop in the global prices of crude oil. The oil and gas sector account for about 50% of gross domestic product and about 70% of all export earnings, resulting in incomes connected to the energy sector experiencing massive drops. Low oil prices compound the negative demand and supply shock of COVID-19 and have resulted in double-digit expected fall of nominal GDP and forecasts of around 5% fall in real GDP, with both oil and non-oil sectors reporting contractions for 2020 in KSA. The government of KSA has demonstrated commendable efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 through a range of timely and well-developed measures to mitigate the impact. The government invested more than 7% of GDP to alleviate the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, the labor market, and individuals. Despite the good efforts of the government, however, the scale of the COVID-19 pandemic is generating socioeconomic disruptions with some groups in KSA, such as frontline workers, women and youth, the elderly, temporary contractual workers, and others being particularly affected and needing targeted support. The present United Nations Diagnostics paper on socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 and how to build back better in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia summarizes the economic and social landscape of KSA with a focus on the potential impact of COVID-19 and the oil price crisis, utilizing the Leave No One Behind lens and concentrating on those most vulnerable among us, and further substantiates the non-exhaustive set of possible UN support and policy recommendations, including the ones already included in the UN COVID-19 capacity brief shared with the government. Moreover, this one UN report is intended to support the efforts of the government to further mitigate the effects of COVID-19 on the economy and society, with the most vulnerable segments of society in mind. By leaving no one behind in our efforts, KSA can accelerate on its path towards achieving the UN Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development Goals, as well as Saudi Vision 2030, and the United Nations in KSA is standing by to support those efforts. To conclude, let me thank the team that put this report together. I would like to recognize the organizational and technical leadership of RCO and UNDP, important and high quality inputs in several rounds of comments from the entire United Nations country team in Saudi Arabia, and of course, the crucial support from our academic colleagues from the Prince Sultan University. All UN agencies, both globally and in KSA, will continue to work together to safeguard lives and livelihoods of the most vulnerable through a wide-ranging effort to address the devastating health, socioeconomic, and human rights aspects of this crisis. Nathalie Fustier, United Nations Resident Coordinator in Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Eliash, for the promising future, I guess. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will listen to Dr. Adam Blukus. Please, Dr. Adam, may you proceed to the podium. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Your Excellency, Dr. Yamani, thank you very much for opening your house to us today and thanking all the colleagues who put this event together. I'm so satisfied, so very satisfied. We were joking a bit before this, the start of this event, that in some ways the United Nations was learning how PSU thinks and PSU was learning how the United Nations thinks. And you know, we got through this, and in a lot of ways we produced another child in this report. I'm the father of 3, thank God, but this one was a unique, more or less 9-month experience. So yeah, we're pretty close. Good afternoon, Excellencies, colleagues, all protocols observed. Thank you for joining us in person and online for this momentous occasion. It is a privilege for the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, to be part of such an event. COVID-19 was a kind of catalyst for this report, but it was critical in any case that we put our collective heads together to advance the development agenda in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In fact, just last night, UNDP launched its annual Human Development Report 2020, now in its 30th anniversary, on the topic Human Development and the Anthropocene. What better example of the impact of man on the environment and our collective response than COVID-19? UNDP has been present in KSA since the mid-1970s. Our relationship is generational. We've been a supportive arm to many ministries, now some 15 ministries. Not only do we provide resources and expertise to the government, but we act as an integrator within the UN system to bring other agencies on board, as mandated by the General Assembly. We can then draw on a vast network of agencies. So this report today is in fact United Nations and PSU activity and not solely UNDP. We're pleased to be playing a role as UNDP in the transition that's happening in the kingdom as we march toward Vision 2030 and the SDGs. It seems to me, no better time to be in the kingdom. Things are so dynamic that personally, as a United Nations representative, I'm energized daily with my conversations with young, old, whether they're here in Riyadh or elsewhere. COVID-19 took the world by surprise and with force, and it moved across the globe and disrupted lives in ways in which we're yet to fully understand. It is for these very reasons that this paper has emerged. UNDP was tasked by the UN Secretary General to lead on the technical side of the socioeconomic efforts in sustainable recovery. UNDP was given the responsibility to provide an accurate and well-positioned plan. To do that, we reached out to Prince Sultan University, who assembled a dedicated team to support the effort. PSU brought with it insights, analysis, data, and translation services, allowing us to have a very broad audience in this report. The value that Prince Sultan brought to the paper has been considerable, and I'm sure our collaboration will continue beyond today. So in brief, the economic impact report of COVID-19 on the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia offers guidance on how we can build back better. It assesses and compares analytics before and after the pandemic to identify the appropriate course of actionable steps to take toward recovery. The report's data is vast and inputs were gathered from government sources as well as UN sources. UNDP considers this research to be a basis for further discussions with ministries, civil society, the private sector, and of course, academia. UNDP looks forward to putting this report into action. We stand ready to continue to serve the kingdom in meeting its aspirations. I wish the rest of the conference or this event, this launch event, great success. And I'll be turning the floor to my colleagues who will go into some of the details afterward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Adam. Now we will have a brief presentation on the report. The presentation will be divided into 3 parts. The first part will be where we're going to ask Dr. Mohammed Al-Jibreen, the General Supervisor of the PSU Center for Financial Studies, to proceed to the podium.
My thanks to Liaj Tunkish. He was responsible to coordinate all these response from all UN agency. Really, it was really hard work to do if you have more than 20 participants contributing to this one paper. And really, he did really a great job. We really appreciate this. And before we finish, also I extend my deep appreciation to the UNDP resident, resident representative, Dr. Adam Lucas and Dr. Mdawi for their unlimited support and conditional support. And I can assure you, without your support, we wouldn't be able to produce this paper. And we really appreciate it. Last but not least, I'd like to extend my thanks and appreciation to Princess Sarah bin Ayaf for her great role. Really, she was of a great help. She is ex-PSU and she is currently a UN employee. So she understands the language for both languages. So she was very great help. We get a lot, unlimited support. Thank you, Sarah, for punctuality and professionalism and the dedication for the project. We get our inquiries answered immediately. And that's what helped. Without your support, maybe this project will be postponed 5 or 6 months. Thank you. And finally, before I start, I just thank our management for their support, starting from our chair, the chair of the Board of Trustees, and our president, vice president, our faculty and employee in the PSU, and of course, my colleagues in the Center for Financial Study for the great effort they have done. And thank you, and I'll start my presentation right now. Oh, no. So as you can see, the title Socio-Economic Impact of COVID-19 in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and How to Build Back Better. So this is about the report. The report, our presentation is going to be different. We are not going to follow the same the flow of the report. So our report, this is the flow of our report. As you can see, there are 3 parts of our report. Part 1, which is a starting point, and part 2, the size of the shock, and part 3, response and recovery. Part 1, we cover the GDP, gross domestic product, and we cover the fiscal and monetary situation and socio-economic situation before the pandemic. And part 2, we just check on the same factor. We cover them, the GDP, the fiscal, and the socioeconomics factors after the pandemic. So we just to measure the effect, how was severely this pandemic affecting our Saudi Arabia economy. Finally, part 3, the response and recovery. This is really the complicated part because we use the UN terminology, we use the UN framework, and that's the reason why we set a whole section for presentation for the UN framework for people to understand it. But if you go to the paper, you will see the responses through the 5 pillars of the UN, these are, which is health first, protecting people, economic recovery, macroeconomic response, and social cohesion. Of course, the purpose of the report was to assess the response of the kingdom to combat the COVID-19 nation through the United Nations framework, combat the COVID-19 through the United Nations framework. Also, another great goal of this paper is to just to check whether how the UN can bring best practice to support the government efforts in fighting the COVID-19. Agenda of our presentation. So we divide our presentation to 3 parts. As I mentioned, we didn't follow the flow of the report. However, we focus on three areas. First one is macroeconomic and socio-economic situation before and after COVID. And the second one is the UN framework for the immediate socio-economic response to COVID-19. This will be covered by Dr. Ilyash Koshnik, because this is really the most difficult part that we try to understand. It took us like 4 weeks, 6 weeks to understand. So he will cover it, at least will give an overview of this framework. Finally, Dr. Mdawi from the UNDP will cover the government initiatives and the UN initiatives in Saudi Arabia, and we'll go over some highlight of the recommendation that we reach. And when we say recommendation, as you know, the Saudi Arabia, their position with fighting the COVID, they are from the top countries. And sometimes, even if you work, there's something you're missing with this huge pandemic effect. I'm sure there is something you will miss, and what just we are trying to help and just to see where the area where the government can put other efforts to improve these things. For example, I'll give you just an example. We notice the medical workers in Saudi Arabia, more than 50% non-Saudi. And this is a problem in the long run, because if you are going to rely on non-Saudi, because some of these pandemic, most of them will leave, they will go back to their countries and their families, and you don't blame them. So you need to rely, and at least you increase this percentage to 75%. This is some of our recommendation, or just in line of this. So this will be covered by our colleague, Dr. Mdawi. So this is the first part. I'll go very fast on this one. As you can see, the macroeconomic before and after the COVID-19, the situation, we divided to 2 parts, the macroeconomic, the economic side, and the social side. When we talk about the economic side, we talk about the GDP, gross domestic product, we talk about fiscal and external account position, we are talking about other things. And when we talk about the social side, we are talking about health, education, poverty, and inequality, and all of these factors which related to social. And as it appears, Saudi Arabia appears to have entered the COVID-19 pandemic from a position of strength. And the reason is, to be honest, the reason is the significant progress on target and goals set out under Vision 2030. A lot of things we accomplish, the government accomplished for the last 4 or 5 years, especially with this reform. Haven't we done these things, we will be in a worse position. But thank God we started early, like 4 years, 5 years back, because you have to diversify your economic, you have to diversify your revenue, you know, VAT and other fees on some products is part of diversifying the revenue. Yes, maybe some people they don't like these taxes, whatever, but it's a must if you want to sustain the economy and you want to have sustainable economy. So it's a new for us, but we have to have it from now on if we want to live and continue sustain our economy, and this is what we need. And if you go for economic, you see KSA ranked as one of the top 10 global improver in the ease of doing business in 2020 report, the World Bank. And also in the social area, KSA was ranked as top performer in World Bank's Women, Business and the Law 2020. There are many laws introduced, law concerning labor, law concerning women, laws, many of these laws introduced to in this area. And as you know, the GDP diversification, fiscal, all of these, and the Human Development Index, Saudi Arabia is improving its rank in this index. We'll go for economic. As you can see, the top exhibits, it shows the growth in the GDP. This is the growth. This is the one on the right representing the growth. For example, 2%. So it's positive, the growth, except this year. There is a year 2017. There was negative growth in the GDP. Otherwise, there is positive growth, 1%, 2%, whatever. And if you see the other graphs, you see this is the export, non-oil export of Saudi Arabia, the green line. It's if you look, it's like 225 billion our export. It's non-oil. Some of it's petrochemical and agriculture and construction materials. So this is part of improving the economy, and this is part of the Vision 2030 of Saudi Arabia. And let's see here what we have. I didn't touch anything. Somebody to help, I don't know. Okay. Okay, now let's see the fiscal deficit. The fiscal deficit in Saudi Arabia was like 4.5% in 2019 compared to 5.9% in 2018. This is where the deficit in the budget. And if we see here the third paragraph, we see the compound annual growth rate of non-oil export is just 5% for the last 10 years, starting from 2010. And the contribution of the private sector in the GDP is almost 41%. And the base of economic diversification right now, VAT introduced selected items tax. Will help the government to diversify its revenue. Just to show you, this is from the World Bank. If you go to see October 2019, this is the forecast of the Saudi economy. If you see the GDP, they were expecting the Saudi economy will increase by, the GDP increased by 1.6%. And see, our import will increase by 4.3 and export, and every number is positive. Once they did the forecast in June, after the pandemic, in June 2020, look to the negative. All numbers are negative. GDP was forecasted to go down by 5.7%. All numbers are down. Even export going down by 6.9%. And you know, this will affect the economy severely. So this is due to the pandemic and the oil prices and several factors. Even though the economy is still strong, as we can see. Employment. We talk about employment in Saudi Arabia. There are 9.5 employees, Saudi and non-Saudi. 6.6 million are non-Saudi, 2.9 million are Saudis. So non-Saudi represents 69% of the employee. If you look to this graph, the one on the right, you see most of the Saudi government sector, 96% are Saudi employee in the government sector. Non-Saudi, only 4%. If you go to the private sector, you see 79% non-Saudi and 21% Saudi in the private sector. Healthcare. Go to the healthcare, government spending a lot of money on healthcare. They just almost 17% of the budget, or 18 almost. It's like 165 or 170 billion spent on the healthcare. And represent almost 18% of our budget. It's in 2019. This is the point I mentioned before, which is 53% of the worker in the healthcare are non-Saudi. And if you go see on the graph or the chart on the right hand, 43% working in the government hospital are non-Saudi, and 92% are Saudi. This is 2014. If you go 2018, it's going down, 39% non-Saudi, 88% are Saudis. Maybe this is due to the scholarship programs that the government started 10 years back. It helped a lot. Education. Education is, Minister of Education is the KSA largest employer with workforce of 800,000. And the budget, almost 19% in 2019 is spent on education. Saudi Arabia government spending a lot of money on education. It's the highest item. It's almost comparable with defense right now. If you can see right now here, Saudi Arabia, they have this scholarship program just to reduce the skill gap among Saudi's national. And if you look to the bottom chart, the one in the bottom, you see 71,000. This is in 2019, 71,000 students studying abroad in the US only, and UK 14,000. If you go back like 3, 4, 5 years back, you will see this number is like 200,000 or more. Imagine 1 million, student and their family. You're talking about 250,000 students, and each one with the 2 people accompanying him, his spouse or children, whatever. It's almost 1 million. Saudi government is paying their full tuition, and that's the fruit of this. We get it right now. You have many people who are well educated in everywhere, in different countries, in Europe, in Canada, in US, UK, in Asia, and this is really the real investment. Then also education here, I'm not gonna just, as you can see the ranks, no wonder since Saudi Arabia, you have 1 teacher for every 13 students in the primary, and 1 teacher to 11 students in the secondary school. If you compare it with the US, you get 14 and 15. So we have lower, which is good. It's slightly lower, but it's good to have lower number of students to each teacher. And if you see the third paragraph, the country was ranked the 105th in 2017 in internet speed, before the quantum leap to the 10th position. Recently, Saudi Arabia reached this 10th position in the speed of the internet. According to Oxford Business Group, Saudi Arabia has the 2nd highest spectrum allocation among G20 countries, and 3rd global ranking 5G deployment. This will help in education. As you can see, everything online. Without this infrastructure, we wouldn't be able to teach for the last year almost with this pandemic. And population and social, as you can see, 50% of Saudi population below the age of 34, and more than 65% is below the age of 39 years. And this number, this is from the IMF. If you see the total spending on social program is like 2.9%, almost 3% of the GDP, not of the budget. Of the GDP is almost 2.6 trillion. So you are talking about 80 billion or 90 billion here of the budget. If you add the social spending to the education and the health, you come up with 50% of the government spending is going to be on these three items, almost. And this is the last thing for me. And really, I just ask Dr. Elias from Kish just to come and elaborate on the UN framework and to understand how this report, approached and conducted. Thank you.
So now for the second part, we will ask Dr. Mohammed Mbawi. Please proceed to the podium, please. Oh, Dr. Elias, you would like, all right. So now we would like to present Dr. Elias to the podium, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon again from my side. I'll present the part of the report with the focus on the UN framework for the immediate socioeconomic response to COVID-19, which is our global United Nations guidance, which was also guiding our own work and our cooperation within the United Nations country team in KSA, under the technical leadership of UNDP and with cooperation with Prince Sultan University. The other one. Very good. Yes. A couple of technical issues. So let me start with a couple of UN guiding questions, which, as I said, were guiding our analysis and write-up of this report. So throughout our thinking in putting this report together, we were always trying to concentrate on the vulnerable groups and looking at the entire thing through the leave no one behind lens. Our guiding questions were separated by three fields. We were firstly looking at what are the measures needed and what are the measures taken already to tackle the immediate emergency in terms of health mainly. Then we were focusing on the social impact and economic response, and finally on how to recover better. Because we do at the United Nations, we see this as an opportunity, as any crisis that changes a lot of the deeply embedded, institutionalized relationships in the society and the economy. It is always an opportunity to change some of those and build back better, with a special emphasis on the most vulnerable groups and being mindful to leave nobody behind, and also being able to achieve a true interconnectedness between different elements of a well-functioning society. So the society, the economy, and the environment as such, and championing the cross-cutting issues such as human rights and gender and women empowerment. So our key considerations for our UN response globally, as well as in KSA, are, as I said, I think to leave no one behind in our response, to be particularly mindful in our analysis on the personal situation and status of particular subgroups of the society, to realize that the occupation matter, that is paying special attention to the frontline workers, to also know that there are considerable and important subnational differences that need to be taken into account, and that the particularities of different legal statuses, one of the main disaggregations that we were looking at and is always in the front line of our attention, of course, being the Saudi nationals versus residents category. And we do feel that that is a distinction that that is important to keep in mind. Through that thinking and being guided by the global documents developed by our policy teams in New York, and throughout also our specialized agencies, including our colleagues from the United Nations country team, we were able to identify several vulnerable groups, several groups that need particular attention, both in terms of assessment, in terms of analysis, and then, of course, in terms of the response, both from the side of the government as well as from the international community, or if you want, the United Nations development system at large. And these non-exhaustive groups are listed here. Let me mention only a couple. Women, older people, indigenous people, migrants and refugees, minorities, of course, persons with disabilities, persons in detention or institutionalized settings, youth, slum dwellers, and of course, people living with pre-existing medical conditions, and those living in the most poor of circumstances. As said, this is a list that is not exhaustive, but we have tried to streamline or mainstream these groups throughout the report and really give them the attention that they deserve, and that will allow us to be truthful to our slogan of building back better and leaving no one behind. What the UN can offer globally and both within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a continuing relationship of supporting the government achieving the Saudi Vision 2030, as well as the United Nations Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. As we heard before, the relationship between the government and even the peoples of Saudi Arabia and the United Nations is decades old, and we are looking forward to continuously build on that relationship, both with the government as well as with our key partners in civil society, in the private sector, and of course in academia, which brought us here today. And what we are bringing to the table is a particular kind of expertise on the issues that are cross-cutting, particularly a wide and deep presence in the country, years of expertise from other countries also, which gives us the required knowledge to assist and accelerate the efforts towards achievement of SDGs, as well as a broad mandate, which was agreed worldwide by the establishment of the United Nations, as well as the support for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We already have a large development portfolio in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that we are building on, but do want to expand and in particularly focus into the areas which together with the government we will identify as we develop the next cooperation framework, is the agreement between the United Nations and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the next couple of years. And also other things I think we are bringing to the table as one UN in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So think of us not as a one agency or another agency, but more of as a united UN presence in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that is here to support and accelerate the path of Saudi Arabia towards higher human development and achieving their own national Vision 2030, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals. In this particular report, we have mainstreamed this assessment and analytical efforts across the 5 pillars of support of the entire United Nations development system at large to the government. And those 5 pillars are starting with health, protecting health services and systems during the crisis, then protecting people, pillar 2, social protection and basic services, followed by pillar 3 on economic recovery especially protecting jobs, supporting small and medium-sized enterprises and informal sector workers, very important, not just in Saudi Arabia, but everywhere. And pillar 4, guiding the necessary surge in fiscal and financial stimulus. This pillar deals with macroeconomic response and multilateral collaboration. And finally, pillar 5, social cohesion and community resilience, which is, as the pillar says, promoting social cohesion. So these are the 5 pillars through which we have assessed and evaluated already existing and good government efforts, but also what we're already bringing to the table, which we shared with the government at the end of April 2020, and which was a list of 67 activities that the United Nations already either have in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and are COVID-19 related, or we were suggesting we would strengthen and deepen to better target and serve the peoples of Saudi Arabia in these challenging times. And we have provided those activities as well as our assessment and analytical narrative across these 5 pillars. Now, to finish, in summary, let me say that all that I have said and all the assessment, all the analytical parts and policy recommendations, they aim to achieve this final goal of building back better, which brings me sort of back to the start where I said that every great crisis is an opportunity. And if that opportunity is faced head on, is faced together through a strong cooperation between the partners, like I said, the private sector, academia, civil society on one side, and then United Nations country team or one UN in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the middle, and on the other side, the government. I'm sure we can together move forward and accelerate our path towards achieving sustainable development goals and Saudi Vision 2030. I think if anything, we have learned from this crisis that we might not be as resilient as we thought we are as a society, and that there are definitely potential improvements that we can pursue together. And I will leave my presentation at that, and thank you very much for your attention.
Now, for the last part of the presentation, I would like to ask Dr. Mohammed Madawi on stage, please, to proceed to the podium.
Good afternoon, His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Al-Yamani, colleagues from PSU, colleagues from the United Nations. It's a pleasure to be with you today in this great event. This is the last part of the presentation. It's going to talk about the initiatives taken by the Kingdom of the Government of Saudi Arabia in responding to COVID-19, as well as some of the recommendations made by the group as a result of this study. So I would like to start by commending the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the great effort done. And as indicated by Dr. Ahmed Al-Yamani, it's indeed a great place to be. We all felt, as non-Saudis living in Saudi Arabia, that it is one of the safest places in the world to be during such a crisis. So, of course, it wasn't possible without great investments and great efforts made by the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So I will be presenting what the government has done so far. Again, it's the 5 pillars. Of course, the list is not going to be inclusive of all the actions taken, but it will only highlight a few actions taken by the government under each pillar. For the first pillar, health first, from day one, since the cases started to emerge in China in December, the Kingdom came up with a preparedness plan in January. So that was a great forward action, preparing itself and its resources to respond to the crisis. But of course, at that time, no one can predict how big and how complicated the crisis is going to be. Of course, quarantining people who are traveling and coming in and out the kingdom, and also banning the travel abroad. That was a requirement to prevent further spread of the epidemic. Another pillar, the second pillar, which is people first or protecting people. The government has provided child focus coordinated with the Ministry of Health to provide timely and relevant information to families. And that was a great effort done in this regard. Other organizations such as Saudi Food Bank start providing food to vulnerable groups. And there was, of course, as you know, a committee from different ministries coordinating and working together hand in hand to provide several services to different groups. The authorities increased the tax to 15%. Of course, that was a requirement to cope with or to diversify the income or the revenue for the government. And also, some UN agencies provided advisory services to different agencies and also using platforms or digital platforms. UNHCR in particular was providing support to migrants community in the kingdom. Under Pillar 3, which is about economic recovery, the Ministry of Human Resources allowed to reduce employees' grant paid annual leave or grant exceptional leave to employees. Also, there was a support of 60% of the Saudi national employees' wage for 6 months. The kingdom also put 5.3 billion riyals as initiative of the Human Resource Development Fund and supporting the foreign temporary contractual workers and victims of trafficking in person. As you know, there were many decisions and orders made covering not only Saudis, but also non-Saudis and even people who are, let's say, overstaying or enter the kingdom through illegal ways. If we go to pillar number 4, the macroeconomic response, also the financial stimulus made by the kingdom was significant. And also to mention, and although it is not mentioned here in the slide, that the kingdom through its leadership role and the presidency role to the G20 also made global contributions in advocating for lifting or delaying the payment of debt by several countries. So that was a great achievement as well. Support to the private sector from unemployment insurance fund. That was another initiative undertook by the government. And SAMA reduced its policy rate twice, lowering the repo rate by 75%, 75 basis points from 1.75% to 1%. Under the last pillar, which is about social cohesion, MOMRA initiated, which is the Ministry of Rural Affairs, introduced partial lockdown in selected cities and areas, again to protect people moving from one region to another, again in the interest of minimizing the number of cases transmitted within the kingdom. As I mentioned, UNHCR has been proactive in supporting life-saving assistance to people who are considered as migrants in the kingdom. So, in terms of recommendations, the group came with some recommendations. As I said earlier, they were, of course, great effort made, and it was also mentioned by Dr. Jibreen and Eliash. There has been great efforts made, but still there is some areas of improvement. And this is why some recommendations are being presented for further discussion and joint work with the government and private sector and civil society organization to further enhance and build back better. So the first recommendation is related to the issue of lack of private sector contribution in tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. So it was realized that the test of COVID-19 in the private sector was a bit expensive. So that is something to be looked at and maybe hopefully addressed if the epidemic continue further, or in future epidemics. This is something to look at by the government in terms of regulation. Another point was also mentioned by Dr. Jibril earlier is the shortage of domestic health workers. This is something also need to be looked at the long run. Food policy need to be on a long-term priority because 70% of the food is being imported. In terms of additional recommendations, of course, the balanced fiscal and monetary policy that smoothen out fiscal spending over the cycle. I think the kingdom is continue to look into this issue, yet they also deal with the unknowns. I mean, the global economic and the price of oil keep changing. So this is something also keep putting pressure on the government to diversify the economy and to increase the revenue from other sources other than oil. Of course, the government also needs to double down its effort and commitment towards economic diversification, which I already mentioned, and the integration of expat back into the Saudi labor market in terms of, again, linking to the diversification of economy and doing business better. This leads also to the private sector involvement in providing inputs to the budget-making process, coordination with academia on the assessment of the required research output and human resources. And finally, Saudi Arabia in 2017 issued a law on violence against women. The UN agencies, almost all of them, have been working with civil society organizations and government institutions such as the Saudi Family Affairs Council and the National Family Protection Program in providing training for care providers. And I think this is an area where we still need to do more. And with that, I would like to thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Just, this is the end of our presentation. I just want to thank you, Dr. Mdawi. We always say, leave the best to the last. That's the reason why we left the last section with you. This is the best, the initiatives. And I just, since we are done with this project, I'd like to express my appreciation to the UNDP as UNDP President Representative Dr. Adam and his deputy Dr. Mdawi and Princess Sarah. Really, it was a really long 6 months, but it was really, we just came with this project. And I want to assure you, if you have another project right now, we understand everything. We understand you. We are willing to do it. No question about it. So you are welcome to approach us anytime. And to be honest, it's going to be shorter time because we understand right now. And really, without your support, it was really great pleasure working with you for the last 6 months. It was a really great pleasure. And also, I just extend my thanks to all UN teams that work with us on this project and to our teams from the PSU. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we are looking for a future project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jibreen, for the emphasis of our collaboration. Dr. Ahmed Yamani, our president, would like to share his closing notes. Please welcome our president to the podium. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I just could not wait to say something for Dr. Muhammad and Mr. being very modest for the extraordinary work they have been working. All, of course, since they took the assignment, it was like 6 months ago. no doubt, with the great help of the people in the field, which is of course Dr. Adam Charles Bokas, and of course Dr. Mohammed Mdawi. They did extraordinary job with their, of course, local team. Without them, this would not be possible. And I hope this is just the beginning of establishing a long-lasting partnership between PSU and UNDP. And we also hope that, of course, we will definitely looking forward to working with you to achieve our common goal. And thank you all. And I want to congratulate each and every one of you and us for the great job well done. And I thank you all.
I would like to request our president, Dr. Ahmed Yamani, on stage to award our distinguished Her Excellency Natalie Forstier, the United Nations Resident Coordinator, which will be received by Dr. Eliash, and of course, Dr. Adam Blukus, UNDP Residence Representative, as well on stage. Thank you.
We're smiling.
And last but not least, thank you everyone for attending. And of course, at every event, the best thing to do is to take pictures. So please join us to take a picture with all of us. Thank you. Have a good one.